You're making these communication mistakes right now, and you don't even know it. And I'm not talking about small stuff. I'm talking about the kind of mistakes that are quietly killing your attractiveness, your presence, and your ability to hold anyone's attention, especially hers. I made these mistakes for years, and the worst part, I thought I was doing everything right. I thought being expressive, being open, filling silences, reaching out first, I thought all of that was confidence, but it wasn't. It was just noise, and noise repels people. I've spent years studying attraction psychology, communication, and human behavior, and after working with thousands of men and breaking down hundreds of real interactions, I keep seeing the same mistakes come up again and again, the same patterns, the same habits, and they all start with one thing. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those mistakes are, why you're making them without realizing it, and the specific behaviors to replace them with. But if you want to go even deeper than what this video covers, I wrote a book called The Truth Detector: How to Know What She Really Wants If She's Using You and When She's Playing Games. It's the first link in the description. Everything we're going to talk about today, that book takes it further and faster. Check it out. But let's talk about mistake number 1. You speak first. Every time. I know. You've heard be confident. Make the first move. Don't be afraid to approach. And look, there's truth in that. But it's not about whether you do it. It's about what it communicates when you do it too fast, too eagerly, and too often. Think about the last time you were really interested in someone. She posts something and you're the first to reply. She goes quiet for a day. You send a follow-up. You're in a conversation and there's a pause, so you jump in to fill it. Feels natural, right? Feels polite even, but every single time you rush to fill that space, you told her something. You told her you were waiting. You told her your attention is always available. You told her she doesn't have to do anything to keep you around because you'll keep yourself around just fine. And the moment she knows that, the dynamic shifts because human psychology is wired to chase what feels just slightly out of reach. Research in behavioral psychology has shown consistently that perceived scarcity increases value, whether we're talking about products, opportunities, or people. Robert Cialdini literally built an entire framework around this in his work on influence. The principle is the same. When something feels readily available, we stop treating it like it's worth much. So when you're always the first one to speak, always the first one to respond, always the one bridging every silence, you've made yourself available. Completely. And available is the opposite of interesting. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because most guys who do this aren't doing it from a weak place. They're doing it because they genuinely like her. They're doing it because they were taught that effort equals value. Put in the work. Show up. Don't make her feel ignored. And that's not wrong in every context. But in attraction, effort without restraint reads as desperation. And desperation is the one thing that no amount of looks, money, or charm can overcome. I remember a guy, sharp, well-dressed, funny, told me about a conversation he had with a woman he'd been interested in for weeks. He said it was the best conversation of his life. They talked for hours. He was present, engaged, asking questions, sharing stories. He thought he'd nailed it. She ghosted him 3 days later. And when I asked him to walk me through the conversation, it took me about 2 minutes to see exactly what happened. He had done all the talking. Every silence, he filled. Every question she asked, he answered in full and then asked 2 more back. He gave her everything, his full attention, his full personality, his full interest, all at once, all up front, all for free. So what was left for her to wonder about? Nothing. What did she have to work for? Nothing. The curiosity was gone before it even had a chance to grow. But that's the trap. And it's invisible when you're in it because it feels like connection. But there's a difference between connection and oversharing. One pulls people in, the other pushes them out the door with a smile on their face. Mistake number 2, you validate too fast. And this one is sneaky, because when you do it, you genuinely think you're being warm. You think you're being relatable. You think you're making her feel comfortable. But what you're actually doing is handing over your approval before she's done anything to earn it. Here's what this looks like in real life. She tells you she's from a certain city. You say, "Oh, I love that place." She mentions a band she likes. You say, "No way, me too." She shares an opinion. You agree with it almost immediately. Every little thing she puts out there, you catch it and reflect it straight back with a smile. In the space of a few minutes, you've told her that you like where she's from, you like what she likes, and you agree with how she thinks. You've handed her a full picture of a man who is already on her side, already impressed, already sold, and now she has a very simple question in the back of her mind, even if she never says it out loud. Why is he so eager to agree with everything I say? That question is not attraction. That question is suspicion. But here's the psychology behind it. When approval comes too easily, it loses meaning. Think about it this way. If every single person who walked into a job interview got told, "You're exactly what we're looking for," that compliment would mean nothing. The value of approval is directly tied to how hard it is to get. So when you validate everything she says instantly, your validation becomes worthless. And the man whose validation is worthless is a man she stops trying to impress. This is actually something Fortune 500 sales teams train their people on. The principle of not showing your hand too early. The moment a client knows you need the deal, you've lost your leverage. The same dynamic plays out in attraction every single day. Now, I want to be clear about something. This is not about being cold. This is not about pretending you don't like her or playing some kind of game where you act uninterested. That's just a different kind of performance, and people can feel it. What I'm talking about is genuine selectivity, actually having standards for what you find interesting. Not every opinion she shares deserves your enthusiastic agreement. Not every detail about her life needs to be met with, "That's so cool." Some things can just land. You can let a moment breathe without rushing to fill it with approval. And here's what changes when you do that. She starts to wonder. She starts to put in a little more effort. She shares something, and instead of getting your instant validation, she gets a pause. Maybe a question, maybe a slightly skeptical look, and suddenly she's working for your reaction instead of just receiving it. That shift is everything. There's a concept in psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same reason people can't put down a slot machine. When a reward comes sometimes, unpredictably, the brain becomes far more focused on getting it than when the reward comes every single time. Your validation should work the same way. Not withheld cruelly, just not given away automatically. And look, if you're sitting there thinking, "But I don't want to be manipulative," I get it. That's actually a good instinct. But here's the thing. Right now, the way most guys communicate, they're not being authentic either. They're being automatically agreeable. That's not genuine. That's just a habit. Breaking that habit and actually responding to things based on whether they genuinely impress you, that's more honest, not less. If you want to understand this at a deeper level, what she's actually thinking when she tests your reactions, when she goes cold, when she pulls back, I put it all in the truth detector. It's the first link in the description, because what we're covering here is the surface. The book goes into the patterns underneath. Mistake number 3. You over-explain yourself. And I don't mean in a nerdy technical way. I mean in a very specific, very common way that happens the moment you feel even slightly judged or questioned. She raises an eyebrow at something you said. She asks why you did something a certain way. She seems unimpressed. And immediately, without even thinking, you launch into an explanation. Well, the reason I said that is because I don't usually do this, but I know it sounds weird, but what I meant was, sound familiar? Well, here's what's happening in that moment. You felt a gap between how she sees you and how you want to be seen. And instead of sitting comfortably in that gap, you panicked. You tried to close it as fast as possible by giving her more information, more context, more reasons to understand you and approve of you. And I get it. It feels logical. If she just understood where you were coming from, she'd get it. She'd agree. She'd see you the way you see yourself. But here's what she actually sees. She sees a man who needs her to understand him. A man who is uncomfortable being misread. A man who cannot sit still in uncertainty without trying to fix it with words. And that is not attractive. Not even a little bit. Think about the most confident people you've ever met. Not arrogant, actually confident. Did they over-explain themselves? Did they justify their opinions the moment someone pushed back? No, they said what they said, and then they let it stand, because they weren't looking for anyone's permission to have thought it. There's a concept that researchers who study social dynamics keep coming back to, and it's this: The person in any interaction who needs the least amount of approval tends to hold the most social power. Not because they're rude or dismissive, but because their sense of self doesn't depend on the other person's reaction. When you over-explain, you are doing the opposite. You are broadcasting that her reaction matters more than your comfort, and the moment she picks up on that, the power in the conversation shifts entirely in her direction. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because the urge to over-explain doesn't just show up when you're defensive, it shows up when you're excited too. You tell a story and you add too much detail because you want her to find it as interesting as you do. You make a joke and then immediately explain why it's funny because you're not sure she got it. You share something about yourself and then you add 3 more things to make sure she's impressed. All of it comes from the same place, the need to control how she perceives you. And here's the painful truth. You cannot control how someone perceives you. You can influence it, but the harder you try to manage it, the more it slips away, because people don't connect with men who are performing. They connect with men who are just there, settled, unbothered by whether the room approves or not. I was talking to a guy once who had been on 3 dates with the same woman. Things were going well. Then on the 4th date, she asked him casually why he'd ended his last relationship. Simple question, and instead of giving a simple answer, he spent 10 minutes walking her through the entire history, every argument, every reason, every justification for why he wasn't the problem. She never called him back. Not because his explanation was wrong, but because the explanation itself was the problem. It told her everything she needed to know about how he handles discomfort, and what it told her made her nervous. The fix is not complicated, but it is uncomfortable at first. You say what you mean, you say it once, and then you stop. If she wants more, she'll ask. And if she doesn't ask, that's information too. Either way, you don't chase her understanding with more words. Say it, let it land, move on. That single shift will change how people experience you in conversation faster than almost anything else you could do, because silence after a statement reads as confidence, and confidence, real or practiced, is the thing that makes people lean in instead of pull back. Mistake number 4. You match her energy instead of setting your own. And this one is subtle, because on the surface, matching someone's energy sounds like a good thing. It sounds like empathy, like you're in tune with her, like you're a good communicator. And to a point, it is. But there's a line, and most guys cross it without even noticing. Here's what it looks like. She's warm and excited, so you become warm and excited. She pulls back and goes a little cold, so you get quieter, more careful, more cautious. She seems uninterested, so you start second-guessing everything you're saying, adjusting your tone, softening your words, trying to match whatever frequency she's on so she doesn't drift further away. And the whole time, you think you're being emotionally intelligent, but what you're actually doing is handing her the remote control to your personality. Think about that for a second. If your entire energy in a conversation is determined by how she's showing up, then who's actually leading? Not you. She is, and she can feel that. Even if she can't name it, she can feel it, and it makes her trust you less, not more. Here's why. People are naturally drawn to those who have a stable sense of themselves regardless of the environment. It's the same reason a calm person in a chaotic room stands out. It's the same reason a man who laughs genuinely at something when everyone else is being serious is suddenly the most interesting person there. Stability is magnetic, reactivity is not. Now, I'm not saying be a statue. I'm not saying ignore the room or bulldoze through a conversation with zero awareness of the other person. Reading the room is a real skill and it matters, but there's a difference between reading the room and being controlled by it. Great communicators, the ones who actually hold attention and command respect, they read the room and then they decide how they want to show up. They don't just absorb whatever energy is there and reflect it back. After breaking down interactions of some of the most naturally compelling men, the kind of guys who walk into a room and things just shift, the pattern is always the same. They bring their own weather. They're not performing. They're not trying to match anyone. They just have a settled, consistent energy that other people end up gravitating toward almost without realizing it. And here's the part that most guys miss. When she goes cold, and she will at some point, because that's just how attraction works. Your instinct is going to be to go cold back or to try harder to warm things up. Both of those are reactions. Both of them put her in control. The third option, the one almost nobody takes, is to stay exactly the same. Warm if you were warm, relaxed if you were relaxed. not because you're ignoring what she's doing, but because your energy doesn't depend on hers. That steadiness is what she's actually testing for, whether she knows it or not. She pulls back to see if you'll chase. She goes quiet to see if you'll panic. And the man who just stays himself without flinching, without adjusting, without performing, that man becomes genuinely interesting to her because he's unlike almost everyone else she's ever talked to. I had a friend who used to say that the most attractive thing a man can do in a conversation is make the other person feel like their mood didn't change his. And I thought that was cold when I first heard it. But it's not cold at all. It's actually deeply secure. It says, I like talking to you, but I don't need you to be a certain way for me to feel okay. And that kind of security is rare. Rare things are valuable. So the next time you're in a conversation and you feel her energy shift, notice your instinct. Notice whether you're about to adjust yourself to match her, and then don't. Stay where you are. Keep your tone, keep your pace, keep your presence. Let her come to you, because the man who sets the energy is always more interesting than the man who follows it. Mistake number 5. You talk to be liked instead of talking to connect. And I know those sound like the same thing, but they're not even close. When you talk to be liked, every sentence has a hidden agenda. You're monitoring her reaction while you're still mid-sentence. You're choosing words based on what you think she wants to hear. You're steering the conversation away from anything that might make you seem less impressive, less interesting, less whatever you think she's looking for. The whole thing is a performance. And the exhausting part is that you don't even realize you're performing because you've been doing it for so long, it just feels like conversation. But she feels it. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere underneath the surface, she feels like she's not quite talking to a real person. She's talking to a version of you that's been carefully managed for her consumption. And real connection cannot happen with a managed version of someone. It can only happen with the actual person. Here's what talking to connect looks like instead. You say things you actually think, even if they're a little unexpected. You disagree with her sometimes, not to be difficult, but because you genuinely see it differently. You let the conversation go somewhere uncomfortable instead of steering it back to safe ground. You stop worrying about whether she's impressed and just start being interested in her, in the topic, in the moment itself. And the strange thing that happens when you do that, she relaxes because she can feel that you're not performing. And when she stops feeling like she needs to perform back, that's when a real conversation actually starts. That's when something real can happen. There's research out of UCLA on social interaction that found people consistently rate authentic, slightly unpredictable communicators as more interesting and more trustworthy than people who are overly agreeable and consistently positive. Because the brain reads perfect agreeableness as a mask, and masks make people nervous, even when they can't explain why. So, what does this all come back to? Every single mistake we've talked about today, speaking first, validating too fast, over-explaining, matching her energy, performing instead of connecting, they all come from the same root, the need for approval. The quiet, constant background hunger for her to like you, to be impressed by you, to choose you. And that hunger, as understandable as it is the thing that's pushing her away. Because the man who doesn't need her approval, who speaks when he has something to say, who lets silence sit without panicking, who says what he thinks without wrapping it in 10 layers of justification, who brings his own energy and stays in it regardless of what she does. That man is genuinely rare, and rare is the only thing that's truly hard to walk away from. Now look, everything we cover today is a starting point. The patterns go deeper than a single video can take you. If you want to understand what she's actually thinking underneath the surface, when she pulls back, when she goes hot and cold, when her words and her actions don't match, I put it all together in the truth detector. How to know what she really wants, if she's using you, and when she's playing games. It's the first link in the description. It's going to answer the questions this video raised faster than anything else I can point you to. But here's the thing I want to leave you with. You don't become more attractive by saying more. You become more attractive by meaning more when you do speak. Every word you hold back is a word that keeps them wondering. And wondering is the beginning of everything. Stop talking so much. Start saying more.